Black innocent virgin waitress enters the Korean Mafia world. She is the target of two dangerous men. Cassandra Aduk adjusted the apron around her waist for the third time, feeling the fabric dig into her skin. The polished wooden floors of Moonbridge Seoul gleamed under the dim golden lights, reflecting the quiet chaos of the evening crowd. Plates clinked. Glasses tumbled. The faint smell of saffron and grilled meat mixed with the subtle perfume of expensive clientele. She had been working double shifts for weeks now, barely sleeping, barely eating, and yet she told herself she was surviving. That's all she knew how to do. Tonight, like every other night, she moved through the restaurant like a ghost, passing unnoticed, carrying trays of champagne or searing lamb, and offering polite smiles to people who didn't care she existed. Her thoughts wandered to her tiny apartment, the stack of bills she hadn't dared open, and the faint hum of the city outside her window. Everything changed the moment he walked in. Tae-min. Cassandra didn't know his name, of course. She didn't even know he was the head of the most feared mafia clan in South Korea. All she saw was the aura, cold, commanding, and lethal, before he even stepped fully into the room. The restaurant seemed to shrink around him. Conversations faltered mid-sentence. Glasses rattled in their holders. Even the waitstaff froze. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored black suit. His hair was slicked back, revealing a sharp jawline and piercing dark eyes that scanned the room like a predator seeking its prey. The scar under his right eye seemed almost insignificant against the intensity of his gaze, yet Cassandra noticed it instantly. Something about him made her pulse race. Her hands shook slightly as she passed a tray to a nearby table. She tried to steady herself, tried to remind herself that he was just another wealthy customer, but he wasn't just another customer. He stopped. His gaze locked onto her. "You, come here." The words were soft, controlled, yet every syllable held a threat she didn't fully understand. Her tray nearly slipped from her hands as she took hesitant steps toward him. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she couldn't move fast enough. She was rooted in place, caught in the gravitational pull of his stare. "No," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "And not afraid." "Interesting." Cassandra's throat went dry. "I am just doing my job," she managed to whisper. He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle. His hand, adorned with silver rings, reached out, just short of touching her cheek. "No," he murmured, "I don't want you afraid. Not of me." Heat rose to her cheeks. Her heart pounded so violently she thought he might hear it. She had never been spoken to like this, not with that intensity, not with that hunger. "You," he paused, almost to himself, "you might survive here. Perhaps even thrive." Cassandra felt the weight of his words settle over her like a storm cloud. Confusion, fear, intrigue. A strange flutter of excitement she didn't understand. And then, without warning, he leaned back, eyes never leaving hers, and gave a small, enigmatic smile, the kind that promised danger and power in equal measure. From a shadowed corner, Cassandra didn't notice the other man watching. His gaze was cold, calculating, and something in it made her stomach twist with unease. This man would become part of her story too, she just didn't know it yet. As Tae-min stood and left without another word, the restaurant seemed to exhale. Patrons whispered in hushed tones, stealing glances at the young waitress who had just been noticed by the most dangerous man in the city. Cassandra returned to her duties, hands trembling, mind spinning. Her simple life, her quiet, invisible existence, had ended the moment Tae-min had looked at her. And somewhere deep down she felt it, nothing would ever be the same again. Cassandra tried to shake the memory of Tae-min's piercing gaze as she walked home that night. Every step echoed against the narrow alleyways of Seoul, each shadow stretching unnaturally in the pale streetlights. She couldn't stop thinking about the way he had looked at her, like she was something precious, or dangerous. Her stomach knotted. He had smiled, and yet, there had been something else in his expression, a silent warning. She clutched her bag closer, reminding herself to focus on survival. That was all she had ever done. Stay invisible. Stay unnoticed. Keep moving. But tonight someone else was watching. From the darkness of a sleek black car parked just around the corner, a man observed her every step. He leaned slightly forward, the light from the street reflecting in his sharp, calculating eyes. Ji-hoon Kong. Tae-min's former right hand, now estranged, now a ghost in the Korean underworld who preferred to move unseen. His presence was quiet, deliberate, but lethal. Every inch of him screamed control, patience, and cold detachment. But Cassandra stirred something he hadn't felt in years. Not power. Not revenge. Not fear. Something tender. Something human. He saw the way she flinched as a car horn blared. The way her fingers gripped her bag. The way she tried to appear confident, but the slight tremor in her shoulders betrayed her. She was fragile. Innocent. completely unaware of the world she had just stumbled into. Ji-hoon's lips curved faintly, almost imperceptibly. He wanted to step out of the shadows to warn her, to protect her. But he didn't. Not yet. Because watching her untouched by the corruption around her, was a rare kind of pleasure. A rarity in his life, which had long been spent in blood, betrayal, and fear. Cassandra's breath caught when the black car's window rolled down. A deep, calm voice sliced through the night air. "Cassandra, right? Get in. This city is dangerous at night." Her heart leapt. She froze. Who are you?" she stammered, instinctively taking a step back. "Someone who wants you to survive," he said softly, his tone smooth but firm. "Not everyone here has good intentions. Not everyone is what they seem." She hesitated, the temptation of safety warring with her stubborn independence. A part of her wanted to trust him. Something in the curve of his lips, the steady calm of his presence, promised protection. But another part screamed to run. To stay invisible. To hide. She shook her head and stepped back. I can manage. Thank you." Ji-hoon simply nodded. His eyes lingered on her a moment longer than they should have. And then, the car door closed, the engine roared to life, and he disappeared into the night. Cassandra shivered. Not from the cold. Not entirely. But from the awareness that she had entered a world she didn't understand. That something dangerous had taken notice of her. Back at the restaurant the next day, she tried to focus on work, on keeping her head down, but she couldn't shake the memory of two men. Tae-min-seo. The one who radiated fire and dominance, who had stared at her like she was the only thing worth noticing in the world. Ji-hoon Kang. The shadowy figure who had watched her from the darkness, who had offered her safety without even touching her. She was suddenly aware of the invisible lines drawn around her. Two predators. One girl. And she was caught between them. Her life, once simple and predictable, had been thrown into chaos by a single glance, a single offer, a single night. And Cassandra knew, somewhere deep down, that she could never go back to being invisible again. Because she was no longer just a waitress. She was a target. And in the Korean underworld, being a target could get you killed. The next morning, Cassandra arrived at Moonbridge, Seoul, still feeling the lingering chill of last night's encounter. Her legs felt heavy, as if the city itself had conspired to trap her in its shadows. She pushed the thoughts aside. Or survival. That was all that mattered. Yet the moment she stepped into the restaurant, the air shifted. Tae-min-seo was already there. Not at a table like a normal customer, but waiting. Watching. Like he had been expecting her. Cassandra's heart thudded in her chest, a loud, unrelenting drumbeat she could not silence. She gripped her tray so tightly her knuckles turned white. He stood, smooth as a predator, and took a step toward her. The room seemed to blur around him. Sit. The word was calm. Controlled. But it carried an authority that made her legs tremble. Before she could protest, he had pulled out a chair beside him. His movements were fluid, deliberate, every inch of him commanding attention, demanding obedience. Cassandra froze. Customers glanced at the scene with curiosity and fear, but no one dared interrupt. He tilted her chin gently, lifting her face toward him. His eyes searched hers, and for the first time she felt completely naked under someone's gaze, not physically but emotionally. "You're shaking," he said softly. "Do I scare you?" "And no," she stammered, though her voice betrayed her. His lips curved in a faint, knowing smile. "Good. I don't want fear. Fear makes people weak. And I don't need another weakness in my life." She swallowed hard, her throat dry. He leaned just slightly closer, and she felt the warmth of his presence like fire against her skin. "You're untouched, aren't you?" Her cheeks flushed crimson. She choked back a gasp. How could he know? No one had ever asked, or even implied, such a thing before. He didn't wait for her answer. Instead he smiled again, slow, deliberate, dangerous. "I can always tell," he murmured, almost to himself. "The world hasn't ruined you yet. That's rare. Precious." Heat pooled in her stomach. Her hands shook, her heart raced, and she suddenly realized how small and fragile she felt. But at the same time, a strange, thrilling curiosity stirred inside her. A desire to know him, to understand this dangerous man who treated her differently than anyone else ever had. Before she could respond, a voice cut through the tension. "You're scaring the girl, Hyung?" Ji-hoon Kang. He emerged from the shadows of the restaurant, calm and calculated as ever, but his eyes burned with a quiet intensity that made Cassandra's stomach twist. Taemin's dark gaze snapped toward him, sharp and protective. "And you think you own her?" he said, his voice low, dangerous. Ji-hoon's lips curved into a faint smirk. "I don't own her. I'm just making sure she survives." Cassandra's chest tightened. The space around her seemed to pulse with tension. Two of the most dangerous men she had ever seen were circling her, claiming her in different ways without ever touching her. Her voice trembled as she stepped back instinctively. I am just a waitress. Please stop. But Tae-min leaned closer again, hand brushing her hair from her face. You're not just a waitress. You're something else. Something worth noticing. And I don't share what's mine. Ji-hoon's eyes narrowed, his posture rigid. We'll see about that. Cassandra felt like the world had shifted beneath her feet. Two men, two powerful, dangerous predators, each vying for a claim she didn't even understand. Her legs felt weak. Her heart raced. Her innocence, her entire life, was suddenly a weapon in a game she had never agreed to play. And yet, in the midst of fear, a strange, dizzying thrill coursed through her veins. She couldn't explain it. She wanted to run, yes, but part of her wanted to stay. To see where this dangerous, intoxicating tension might lead. Because the moment Tae-min's hand lingered near hers, Cassandra realized one terrifying truth. She was no longer invisible. And being noticed by the Ghost King meant she was already in danger. Cassandra could barely sleep that night. Her small apartment, usually a sanctuary, felt suffocating. The city sounds outside, the distant wail of sirens, the hum of cars, were no longer just background noise. They were warnings. Footsteps in the dark. Shadows moving just beyond her door. Her mind replayed the morning's events. Tae-min Seo had been impossible to forget. His eyes like knives, his touch like fire, his presence like a storm she couldn't escape. And then Ji-hoon, silent, cold, but watching her with a possessiveness that terrified her just as much as it intrigued her. She shivered. Two predators. One girl. And she was the prey caught between them. The next day, tension gripped Moonbridge Seoul. Tae-min appeared again as if by instinct, scanning the room until he found her. Cassandra tried to keep her distance, telling herself this was work. Just work. But her pulse betrayed her. Every glance from him made her stomach twist with anticipation and fear. He didn't hide his interest anymore. Every time she passed by his table, he tracked her movements, his eyes never leaving her. Sometimes he spoke softly, leaving her breathless with a simple command or comment. You're not careful, he murmured once as she set down a plate. I could take you from this restaurant in an instant, and no one would ever see you again. Cassandra swallowed hard. She should have been terrified, but the thrill, the danger, it ignited something inside her she had never known. Then Ji-hoon appeared. He had been silently watching for weeks, moving through the shadows of her life without her noticing. Now he approached her table after work, his expression calm, composed, but with a fire in his eyes that made her pulse jump. You don't have to let him scare you, Ji-hoon said, his voice low. Not everyone in this city wants to use you. Cassandra's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him. And yet, something inside her told her that danger followed him too. That danger was always a part of him, like a dark halo she couldn't escape. Later that evening, she found herself walking home alone, heart racing, when she realized a car was following her. Her legs picked up pace. Fear shot through her. She ran down narrow streets, her bag bouncing against her side. The car followed. Finally, it slowed. A window rolled down and Ji-hoon's face appeared again, calm as ever. You're making this dangerous for yourself, he said. Get in. I can manage, she said, shaking her head even as her hands trembled. Ji-hoon's eyes softened slightly just for a moment before hardening again. If you insist on walking alone, don't be surprised if someone notices you who shouldn't. Cassandra nodded, swallowing hard. She didn't know what he meant, but she could feel it in her bones. This city was no longer safe, not for her. Back at the restaurant, the tension between Tae-min and Ji-hoon became undeniable. They moved like wolves around her, circling, watching, claiming, without ever touching. Cassandra realized with a mixture of fear and fascination that both men were willing to risk everything for her. And for the first time, she felt a dangerous, forbidden excitement stir inside her. Two powerful men. One innocent girl. And no one, not even Cassandra herself, knew how this game would end. But one thing was clear. She was no longer invisible. And in the world of the Korean underworld, being noticed meant that survival was no longer guaranteed. Cassandra couldn't shake the feeling that the city itself had turned against her. Every shadow seemed deeper, every glance sharper, every street corner a trap waiting to snap. It started with whispers. She overheard two of the restaurant security guards talking quietly in a corner as she passed by. She doesn't know, does she? One murmured. Not a clue. If she finds out she's the lost daughter of the Osei bloodline, the other replied, voice low. The Korean clans will tear each other apart to control her. Cassandra froze. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't heard her father's name in her life. Her mother had always been vague about family history, warning her never to ask questions. And her unusual middle name, something Korean, had always seemed like a secret too heavy to touch. The words repeated in her mind like a drumbeat of fear. Lost daughter. Bloodline. Control. Glance. She stumbled back to her small apartment, trying to piece it together. Could it be true? Could her life, which had been so small, so quiet, be connected to something larger? Something deadly? Her tiny living room suddenly felt suffocating. She pressed her hands to her temples, trying to make sense of it. Her life had been simple. Work, pay bills, survive. And now, she realized she had become the center of a war she didn't understand. She thought of Tae-min. He had been gentle with her. Protective even. And yet, there was something in his eyes. A hunger, a claim, a promise of ownership, that terrified her. And Ji-hoon. The way he had watched her from the shadows. The way his calm exterior couldn't hide the fire beneath. He wasn't just a man. He was a weapon, and somehow he had become her shield. And now she wasn't just a waitress. She was a prize. A target. And perhaps, the most dangerous element in a centuries-old game. That night, Tae-min found her crying in her apartment. He didn't knock. He didn't announce himself. He was simply there, leaning against the doorframe, dark eyes scanning her face with unnerving precision. You should have been protected, he whispered. Not hidden. Cassandra's voice trembled. Why me? Tae-min stepped closer, the warmth of his presence filling the room. Because someone as precious as you shouldn't exist in a world like this, and yet, here you are. Before she could speak, Ji-hoon appeared at the doorway, calm, composed, and entirely too close. Don't trust him, Ji-hoon murmured into her hair, his voice low and dangerous. He wants your bloodline. I want you. Cassandra flinched. Her mind spun. Two men, two desires, two intentions, so different yet both claiming her. You don't understand, she whispered. I'm just me. I'm not anything else. Tae-min's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. You're more. More than you know. Ji-hoon stepped back, but his eyes never left her. And the world will try to use that. But not me. I won't. You're not just a prize or a tool. You're Cassandra. Cassandra's chest tightened. Her heart raced. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. She didn't know. But one truth was undeniable. Her life had changed forever. She was no longer just a waitress. She was the daughter of a powerful bloodline, a target of the most dangerous men in Korea, and the centerpiece of a war she hadn't chosen. And in the shadows of the night, as the city breathed around her, Cassandra understood the terrifying reality. Surviving this world would require more than innocence. It would require cunning, courage, and maybe a heart capable of choosing between two dangerous men who would destroy everything for her. The city of Seoul never slept, but tonight it seemed to breathe danger like a living, pulsing entity. Cassandra had begun to understand the truth of her new life. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a pawn. A prize. A weapon. The first warning came as a whisper. The second as a threat. And by midnight it became all too real. Masked men attacked the restaurant. They came with guns, knives, and intent. Chaos erupted. Glass shattered. Patrons screamed. Cassandra dove under a table, heart pounding, hands shaking so violently she could barely hold her breath. And then they were there. Tae-min and Ji-hoon. Two forces of nature, storming in with precision and lethal efficiency. Tae-min moved like fire, his black suit now soaked in blood and sweat as he took down men twice his size. Ji-hoon was ice, silent and deadly, his blade moving faster than the eye could follow. And through it all they moved with one purpose, to protect her. Cassandra stared, frozen. Fear and awe battled in her chest. The men she barely knew and already feared were killing for her. Literally, for her. When the last attacker fell, Tae-min turned to her, his chest heaving, hands bloodied but controlled as he reached out. You're safe, he said, his voice low, almost a growl. With me. Cassandra's knees weakened. She wanted to run, to hide, to cry, but she stayed, unable to look away from him. His intensity was suffocating. His presence overwhelming. And yet, in that moment she felt protected. But Ji-hoon stepped forward, cutting through her paralysis. Don't believe him, he warned softly, his eyes dark and calculating. This isn't protection, it's ownership. He wants to control you. I want you to choose for yourself. Cassandra turned to him, confusion and fear warring with the strange pull she felt toward him. He was calm, but she could see the storm beneath his surface. A storm that mirrored her own chaotic heart. Tae-min stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, igniting a fire through her body. She is mine, he said, voice low and dangerous. Do not touch her. The tension was unbearable. Two men, both dangerous, both powerful, both capable of destroying everyone around them, claimed her in entirely different ways. And in the middle of it all, Cassandra realized the terrifying truth. Love had become a weapon. She wanted to scream, but instead she whispered, trembling, "I'm not a weapon. I'm not a prize. I'm me." For a moment, silence fell. Taemin's eyes softened, but only slightly. Ji-hoon's gaze never wavered. Both men, wolves circling a lamb, held back but just barely. Cassandra understood, with a sickening clarity, that her life would never return to the quiet existence she had known. Her heart pounded as she realized. Every glance, every touch, every word between her and these men was now a battlefield. Every emotion, fear, desire, attraction, was a weapon in a war she hadn't asked to fight. And as Taemin's hand lingered near hers, brushing against her wrist, she felt it, the raw, intoxicating pull of danger mixed with desire. She had never been closer to a man before. Never felt this way. Never been wanted with such intensity. And yet, Ji-hoon's presence reminded her that the world was cruel and dark. That passion could be deadly. That love was no longer simple. It was survival. 2 men. 1 girl. And the city of Seoul burning around them. Cassandra's innocence had been lost the moment she stepped into the Mafia's world. And now, every heartbeat, every glance, every choice could cost her everything. The city burned with chaos that night. Explosions rattled the streets. Gunfire echoed like thunder in the distance. The neon lights of Seoul reflected off puddles of blood and rain, painting the streets in a surreal mix of red and gold. Cassandra's world had collapsed into terror. She had been kidnapped, taken by a rival clan that wanted to end both Taemin and Ji-hoon once and for all. The chains on her wrists bit into her skin as she struggled to break free, but it was useless. She was trapped, alone and utterly terrified. Her mind raced. Her breaths came in short, shallow gasps. She thought of her quiet life, of the small apartment she had once called home. Gone. Everything gone. And then he came. Taemin Seo. The Ghost King himself appeared in the shadows, moving like a force of nature. His eyes were sharp, focused, and full of a fury that made even the masked guards hesitate. He slaughtered anyone who dared approach, moving with terrifying precision. Behind him, Ji-hoon Kang emerged from another side, silent as a shadow but no less deadly. Where Taemin burned like fire, Ji-hoon cut like ice, taking down attackers with an almost surgical calm. And together they moved as one unstoppable force. Cassandra's heart raced, not just with fear but with awe. 2 men, both deadly, both dangerous, were literally fighting to save her life. Finally, Taemin reached her. His hands tore the ropes binding her, and before she could move, he swept her into his chest. She could feel the heat of his body, the rapid thrum of his heartbeat, the raw intensity that radiated from him. "I thought I lost you," he whispered, voice breaking slightly for the first time. Cassandra buried her face in his chest, trembling. I didn't know. I didn't know if I'd survive." Taemin's hands tightened around her, possessive and protective. "I won't let anyone take you from me," he said almost fiercely. "Not them. Not anyone." But then Ji-hoon appeared behind them, bleeding but alive. He smiled faintly, his dark eyes filled with a mixture of pain and triumph. "She was worth the war," he said softly, voice carrying a strange tenderness. Cassandra's chest tightened. 2 men had risked everything, blood, life, empire, for her. Both deadly, both dangerous, both claiming her in different ways. She looked between them, heart pounding. Fear, gratitude, and something else, something deeper, hotter, more dangerous, swirled within her. 2 kings. 2 loves. 1 girl. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "I choose." But before she could finish, a shadow moved from the wreckage. A masked assassin, a final threat she hadn't anticipated. Taemin reacted instantly, throwing himself in front of her, while Ji-hoon cut down the attacker with a single precise strike. The moment passed. Cassandra's eyes filled with tears. Her body shook. And she realized the truth. Her life would never be normal. Her heart would never be simple. She had survived. But the war wasn't over, not yet. Taemin pulled her close, brushing wet hair from her face. "No one will ever harm you again. I swear it." Ji-hoon's voice came from behind, softer now, almost intimate. "Not while I'm breathing. You're not just a prize. You're Cassandra. And I'll protect you, even if it kills me." Cassandra's pulse raced. She realized finally that in this world of blood, power, and betrayal, love had become the deadliest weapon of all. Her choice would shape empires, would ignite wars, would define her fate forever. And as the rain poured down over the burning city, Cassandra understood one terrifying truth. She was no longer just a girl trying to survive. She was the center of a storm. And the storm had only just begun.